We've been exploring some of the different feats in Neverwinter Nights. And certainly there are class-specific feats, meta magic. I have to have access to spellcasting and arcane to take these feats. A fighter is not going to be able to take these feats straight class. Then there's some feats that are favored over one class over another, but any class can buy into it. An example of that would be disarm. The kind of interesting point is wizards can take disarm because you need a high intelligence to do that. Wizards can't fight, but you could buff yourself up, True Strike and other things, buff your strength up and actually disarm pretty good. It's kind of fun for the lulz when a wizard disarms a mini boss or a main boss. Fighters, though, are well suited to take this because you've got the raw strength, you've got the abilities, you've got other feats to boost it, but you don't always necessarily have the high intelligence to have the buy-in. And then there are feats that are available to all classes, and certainly all classes can benefit from them, but the benefit of them means you're taking away from other feats that could be class-specific or work on your build. An example of this, kind of a debate, Luck of Heroes. +1 to all saves. That's like a free +1 magic trinket. You can only take it at first level. Does a +1 make much of a difference? Now, you could counter that and say, well, look, I can make up that +1 with gear, but it's a +1 bonus across everything. And while a +1 might not seem like much, it is something. And as it stacks with other feats or it stacks with other abilities and war gear or magic items and spells, later on in the game where you're getting blasted by all sorts of crazy stuff, like, yeah, it could make a difference. But you can only take it at level 1. It is available to all character classes. Now, within that framework, toughness, extra hit points, yes or no. It's not as straightforward as you think. That's what we're going to explore in this vlog now that we have the framework. Neverwinter Nights, across the modules, across the adventures, there is narrative, there is a story, there is a quest, there are choices to make, but it is essentially a combat engine. D&D 3.5, 3.x rule set combat engine. You're fighting a lot of stuff. Now, I think that's awesome because you get to encounter all of the iconic D&D monsters across the realm through these different modules and kind of test things out. So being a combat-based game, whatever your plan and however your plan is to defeat that combat, and you need it because the D&D rule system levels you up based on what you fight and defeat, you can never have enough hit points. I mean, no one's going to argue that, but hit points are important. How you gain them, of course, is your character class. Certain characters are going to have more hit points based on the hit dice. Also, the constitution modifiers. Some character classes are really starved for con because you need to put them in other attributes, and some of them will have as a primary attribute. Like a fighter, I'm dumping con into it, I'm dumping strength into it. Everything else is kind of secondary. So your initial hit point pool is based on your character class. Then, of course, the constitution modifiers. Now, the interesting, challenging point is you are limited, and I don't say limited in a negative way. You are limited by your screen, where you are. So in Neverwinter Nights, you're going to move up and fight a bunch of monsters or have an encounter. Sometimes you can't run away. Other times, if you do run away, they're going to follow after you unless you can break line of sight and visibility, hide in plain sight, stealth, things like that. But then you're still going to have to go back and fight them. You might not always be able to rest. So unlike tabletop D&D where it's like you're in a fight and you can easily withdraw, you can't always do that as easy in Neverwinter Nights. Framing that means, yeah, I'm playing a wizard. I played a wizard lots of times in D&D. I continue. I'm in the back ranks. I'm hanging out. And if things get bad, I'm out of here. I'm not going to abandon the party, but I'm squishy. I don't have any hit points. Well, Neverwinter Nights, you're the hero. Even as a wizard, you're up there primarily fighting. You're up there primarily fighting, and that's the focus of it. Likewise, if I retreat, it's not as easy. So having less hit points, a wizard, a sorcerer, or even mid-tier like a rogue or a bard, More hit points, the better. So now we get into toughness. It takes away from other feats. If you are optimizing your character tremendously for the most killy optimization or epic level optimization, then every little plus, every little thing that you can unlock pushing towards what your character does, fighting, spellcasting, stealth, and sneak attack, that's where all your stuff is going. And you'll make do with your hit points. But I do find at a certain point, it stacks up. At a certain point, toughness does help a lot, even on a wizard. When do you take it is the big thing. Now, I don't plan out my characters usually like with a spreadsheet, although back in the day I used to, right? But I kind of keep an idea. I don't like to take toughness early on in any of the character classes because the damage, the value of toughness increases the higher you gain your levels. I don't need to take it at the lower levels because I'm going to gain minimal hit points. I'm going to gain be able to take one extra hit. It's at the higher levels, even as the damage increases, that I can take more. I find it if I am going to take it, and I do often take it, just to give me that hit point boost, because again, you can never have too much being a combat engine. I'll take it like mid-feet level, where now the monsters you're fighting are a little bit harder, the encounters hit a little bit harder, and expanding your hit point pool would be good at that point.